Hello and welcome to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. In today's tutorial, I am going to be showing you how to make this wire pumpkin. I do have some tips and tricks in a separate video that you should check out. If you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, and I will also post a link to that tips and tricks video in the description box. For this video, I am going to just walk you through putting together this overall pumpkin. To start this pumpkin off, you're going to need some wire, and then I just kind of did this sort of measuring this way by reaching out and going okay from my arm to my shoulder. I'm gonna need 4 of them, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pre-measure so that all of them are the same. I mean, they don't have to be exact, close enough is fine. Pumpkins are organic anyway. I already started one, okay, and then from here, the first thing I did was basically make a giant sack. So I just took my 2 ends in, give it a couple twists just to hold it in place. Just formed with my hands a little bit of a, kind of a circle-y type of shape. And then on the bottom, I just indented in. So I have like this sort of oniony kind of looking thing. So that's one. These are gonna sit into each other like this, and I'm gonna want 4 of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that. And go again. My sack, couple twists just to hold it in place, fix the round, and boop, the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to be able to rearrange this as you're going. Once you have that, you're going to take 2 of them first, and you're going to want to unwind one of those bumps. It was just kind of there to temporarily hold it. Stick one over the other. And then give that another twist just to hold it in place. And you're going to lay your 2 little bottom bumps over each other and use some of this smaller wire to lash that little center together. I'm not going to put much there. I'm just going to put a little bit to hold it in place so I can affix the other 2. So at this point, I don't want to have this big bulky thing down there. So I'm just going to take a little bit there. And it's the same thing with what's happening with this twist. This is not a permanent thing. This is just kind of there to hold it in place while we get things worked out. Go ahead and do the same here. I'm just winding it around itself using a basic lashing type of thing. Now I'm going to go ahead and work the next one in, and I'm going to untwist that. Tuck it under. Get it wound here. You don't want to go too nuts about the winding of this because eventually you're going to have to unwind it. I have a little bit of wire left over, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. My last one worked in. If you need to reach in here with a pair of pliers, sometimes the pliers will help you out. This is going to become the base structure, and as you're building, you can go ahead and bend these and manipulate them however you want to as you're going along. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point. I've been making these tiny little swirls, and I'm going to show you in a minute how I made them. And what I'm going to do, as you can see here in my little bit further along structure, I have just been placing them on here in between my sections and lashing them on with that silver wire. Before I can get this going, I need to make these things. And once they are on here and starts building structure, it starts holding itself together and becoming a lot more stable. Let's go ahead and make these guys. You need a pair of your needle nose pliers and a piece of wire. And I pre-measured all these pieces of wire so that I get pieces that are close to the same size. I just sat on the couch and did a whole bunch of these. Became a meditative thing as I just sat there winding the wire. So this is an easy task if you're making components that you can just make a bunch of small little parts and then combine it together to make one larger thing. First thing I did was I took my needle nose pliers And I started with a small loop. I have a little tiny loop here. And then I came in and I continued to just wind around my needle nose pliers until I got, about 2 times around. Once I was 2 times around, I had enough to grab. So before I went into the grabbing, I just kind of flattened it. And then I just pinched here and began bending the wire. And I got probably about 3/4 of my wire bent into this little swirl before I then took my tail end and then bent in the opposite direction. Do the same thing where I just get it going just a bit. And then I come in and I'm already bleeding. Look at that. Be very careful with this wire. It will draw blood. And I have this like curly, cute little S swirl thing happening. So I made a whole bunch of these. You do not need to make this shape. You could make any crazy little patterned shape, make a jig, and do any one of those little methods that I showed in my tips and tricks video. I like having little tiny components to work with. I think that overall it aesthetically looks pleasing when they all come together to create this patterned surface. Okay, there's that. So from here, I went in between 2 pieces, setting it up to go and starting off with the first one, just picking 2 and going in between. Since I've already started working this other one, I'm gonna just continue to demo off of that one. So now I'm just filling in my little places to just get me going. I'm just gonna have a small piece of that lashing wire I've been using, the thinner wire. I am just doing a little bit of winding around here. Did find it handy to use my pliers here to get it nice and tight. So I'm just winding it over itself. And now because I have a second piece butted up next to it, I'm drawing the wire over all 3 pieces. So over my frame piece and over the swirl piece before it and the swirl piece right after it. Once you have that on there, you might need to do some adjusting because sometimes it slides a little bit. And then I'm going to do that same lashing, but here at the top now. And I'm going to go ahead and try putting the center, this top one on first. I love me a tedious project. Hi. What you doing? Oh, yeah. And what happened? Oh, yeah. Okay, everybody. So I went in and I finished putting in all of my little swirls on 4 of my sides, and I do have these open voids, which I'm going to get to in a minute. One thing I did want to mention, and obviously you're making an organic shape. We didn't start it out with the perfect looking pumpkin, the outer skeletal form. There were points when I was going along where I had to adjust some of the swirls, and even with the swirl making, I wasn't making sure that every single one was exactly identical. In order to fill space, I would stretch on them, pull on them, kind of fill them up. Down here at the bottom, I did have to make a little bit of a specialty one, more of like an oval shape with only a tiny little tail here instead of this S looking one that I had. But you know, it still matches aesthetically, and I'm okay with that. So now I have these 4 open voids, and what I've decided to do is to insert these trees. So I've made these little wire trees that should nestle right in here into each one of these sections. Now the thing is, because this swirl pattern is so heavy and in such a large field, it is going to be a little bit more dominant over the trees. I kind of like the idea of having like a design that's hidden within the design. I'm going to show you how to make these trees, and I have cut 5 pieces of wire and braided the center with a 5-wire braid, and then left some of the little bit of extra to make my roots and make my, you know, branches or whatever you want to call them here at the top. First thing I did, and you can see here, a lovely wire mess of scraps, is I sort of eyeballed how much I thought I would need, giving myself a little bit of extra play against the pumpkin itself, removing more and more pieces. By the 3rd tree here, I've now hopefully gotten it down to where I have the least amount of waste. You know, save these scraps, maybe you'll use them for something else. Here's this little guy. You know, you make little things with these scraps. I'm gonna go ahead and cut 5 pieces. So I have my 5 strands, and the first thing I did was put in a little twist here at the top, taped it down. Now, I'm just using some blue tape. However, this blue tape is a little janky. You are gonna have to place a hand here to help you out as well, but it's enough to kind of get you going. For the 5-strand braid, separate 2 to one side and 3 on the other side. You gotta be careful again without ripping through that tape. It is only paper. 1, 2, doesn't really matter how you go about doing this, just separate them. Now, it's going to be a little tricky getting it going in the beginning, but once you get a few little turns on, it actually goes a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is the side that has the 3, the one on the outside edge, I'm going to take that and I'm going to press down here so that I can get a little bit of a twist. And I'm going to pull that to the side that has 2 and put it on the inside. Now this side has 3, so I'm going to do the same thing. Take that from there. Pull that over to this side and put it on the inside. And then I'm just going to keep doing this process, and the more I get the braid going, the easier it becomes, and it kind of starts to take form at the top here. Now this is going to make a really skinny tree. But if you're looking for something to be a little bit more, have like a little bit more of an open weave, you could take something like a Sharpie or a little wooden dowel, and as you go to make this curve, just kind of stick it in here and bend over that, and that'll give you a little gap here in between as you're doing that bending. I think now I've learned the secret to braiding bread, maybe. Now, if you don't like this and you want to try adding another strand or a different kind of design, go for it. You got to get in here and play, and a lot of art making is exactly that. You're just kind of experimenting with things and finding out what works and getting used to it and getting practice. And so I had to have a few little fails here before I actually found something that I was happy with. Don't be afraid of that. The wire was $3, less than the price of a cup of coffee these days, right? Based off of what I know I need for the trunk, I can pretty much stop. So the larger parts where is going to become my upper branch part of the tree. So this will be my top, and that little smaller part that I twisted will remain the bottom. I realized I do have way more than I need, so that's okay. I'm gonna just do my curly cues here, and I need to gauge how much I want, roughly about here. All right, and this one I have flipping in. So I'm gonna flip this in almost the same way that I made the other swirls, just keeping with that aesthetic. And then I have like this little flippy bend here. Once this gets put into position, it's gonna need to be adjusted anyway, because when it rests wherever it's gonna go, I'm gonna be bending these branches just to get them in the right spot. As long as I make sure I've taken off enough that it doesn't look too bulky, then I'm good to go. All right. I have been getting a lot of questions about people asking if the cats are still using the cat house. So look behind me. You can see her little feet are back there. She's nestled in there having her daily nap. So yes, they adore their house. Usually the little girl is with me whenever I'm working, and now she finally has a space out here that she can kind of curl up in and be in while I'm working. So yes, she's back there. See the wild beast in her habitat. Why are you staring at me like that? Fun day on the job here, fun day. Black cat to go with my holiday pumpkin. Okay, so once I've finished up all of my trees here, I can just go ahead and get them lashed on here with my silver wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that task, and when I come back, we'll just be dealing with this top part, the last bit, which is that stem. This is a good time to point out how jacked up my table surface got working with this wire. Think about wherever you're gonna set this, that if you don't clean up all of your underwires, it can scratch your surface. You know, don't do this on your beautiful mahogany dining room table. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I finished getting the trees on, and there's one thing I did want to point out. It was a little tricky getting in here because a lot of the time when I was applying the little circular ones, I was able to get my hand into the inside. Once the trees went on, that did become tricky, and I actually ended up leaving the back one open because, you know, I might want to try and put a light source in here later. But if you are going to put in the fourth one, that it may get a little tricky when it comes to looping your wires. I will say that the bottom was actually fairly easy because it's so open. So I was able to not really need to have my hand inside when I was addressing the bottom part. If you're going to put in the fourth one, I'd recommend you do the top first, and that way you can, you know, use your hand from the bottom of the top and just have it set to side, and then go ahead and address the bottom bit. The next thing I'm going to do is take this little twist apart now here at the top and make a stem. So we're gonna just go ahead and unwind, gently kind of separate all of these here. I'm gonna use my flat pliers to straighten out the parts of the twist. Oh, I'm just gonna pick a direction. This is what I would consider the front, since I left that part open. So I like to have this like little loop over usually here. So I'm just gonna bend Now, if you like this open look, you can go ahead and leave it. I am going to finish it off so that it looks like snapped off. To do that, I'm going to take a piece of that scrap. Just going to take a little oval looking thing, and this is going to get tucked in here somewhere. Poor planning on my part. I should have evened these out a little bit better so that this was a little bit longer, but it's okay. We can roll with it here. So I'm going to come in and trim all of them back to where this point is on that curve. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put in a little loop on each end that's going to be towards where the ring's going to go. Probably should be more of a closed loop so that when I go to lash this on, they don't get away from me. So I'm going to just do, if you can see that, just a little bit of a curve, little closed loop, small as can be. And I do that to all of them. I'm gonna pull this open. I'm gonna loop these through. All right, so now I'm gonna come in and lash my little section there. But I think I'm happy with that. And there she is, my completed wire pumpkin sculpture. All right, you guys, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have not done so already, please like, share, and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon. Okay, wave 5.